Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, almost immediately after the show yesterday, a political earthquake shook the very foundations of Washington, D.C. All over my news feed, I just kept seeing Mike Waltz out, Mike Waltz out, and by the middle of the day, it was confirmed. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, one of the most powerful members of Donald Trump's team, has now been effectively ousted from his position. However, he has not been fired. Initially, the way the media was reporting it, it seemed as if Waltz was going to be out on the street, out on his rear end, that he and his deputy, Alex Wong, were gone. However, Donald Trump, again, threw another curveball by coming out and saying, yes, Mike Waltz is moving on from National Security Advisor. However, I am nominating him to be the next U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. So Waltz will be going from National Security Advisor, which is, of course, a very plum position, one of the most powerful positions in the government, to being essentially now our voice at the United Nations. Now, it seems to me, and you may agree or disagree, I'd love to hear all of you on this, 617-266-6868. I wasn't surprised at the news. After the scandal of Signalgate, which in many ways was a non-scandal, but still, Mike Waltz, and it was Mike Waltz, he fell on his sword. He admitted he was the one who made the mistake. He took the responsibility. When Mike Waltz came out and said, I was the one who accidentally added Jeffrey Goldberg, the vile anti-Trump editor of The Atlantic magazine. I added him to our group chat discussion in which sensitive plans about attacks on Houthi rebels, some of the plans that they had to attack the Houthis, who were backed by Iran. I was the one. It was a mistake, so he says, along with Alex Wong, we were the ones who put him on the group chat. And as you know, Goldberg listened. He was added, took notes, took snapshots, and then leaked the contents of almost the entire conversation and thread to the public, humiliating Pete Hegseth, humiliating Waltz, humiliating Trump's national security team. And then there was a scandal or a public uproar driven by the media in which they tried to get Pete Hegseth gone. The long knives for Hegseth were out. They didn't get Hegseth, but they ended up getting Waltz. Waltz now, and apparently this has been going on for weeks. People at the West Wing were not happy with Waltz. They were not happy with his team. Apparently he mistreated Susie Wiles, Donald Trump's chief of staff, spoke down to her, was condescending, was insulting. That didn't help. But the real reason is that many around Trump felt that Waltz was sloppy, that he made the president and his national security team look bad, that this was an amateur error on his part, and that fundamentally they believed that Alex Wong, his deputy, was the source of the leak, and that for whatever reason, Waltz was not refusing to cut Alex Wong loose. And so basically Trump came to the decision, I'm hemorrhaging. People at the National Security Council are miserable. State Department wants him out. My national security team wants him out. I've got to get rid of him. And so rather than giving the media an all-out victory, which is what it would be had he fired Waltz, Trump then said, let's move him over to the United Nations. Enough time has passed since the so-called scandal. Waltz is now out, and Alex Wong as well. He will now, Waltz will now be, and it looks like he has the votes. He will be confirmed, and looks like he will be our next ambassador to the United Nations. Now, let me just make a couple of points, And then I want to throw it open to you, 617-266-6868. What is very clear is that Mike Waltz is a neoconservative. In fact, if you look at many of Waltz's statements going back just a few years ago, Waltz was an anti-Trumper. He's a war hawk. He wants war with Iran. He disagrees with Trump's views on Ukraine. He wants a much more aggressive posture and stance against Mother Russia. He has said disparaging things about Trump, as I said in the past. He's basically a male version of Nikki Haley. Who the hell vetted him for this position? It's obvious every time Trump spoke, or Rubio spoke, or J.D. Vance spoke, and gave the MAGA America First line on issues, you can see Waltz wincing in the background. Almost as if he's like a boxer who just got punched in the gut. Every sentence, almost every word bothered him. So, he was never really part of the team to begin with. He was always seen, and essentially was, a shill for the national security state and for the military-industrial complex. He wanted more war, not less. He wanted war with Russia. He wanted war with Iran. He wanted more war in the Middle East. And that goes against everything Trump and America First stands for. And so Laura Loomer, to her credit, she Loomered him. She was the one that exposed he was the source of the leak. But she also exposed the numerous comments he made against Trump over the years, and asked the question, who the hell picked him? Who the hell checked him out? Who vetted him? Who's doing the vetting? Well, Trump didn't like what he saw and eventually moved him over to the UN. Now, I understand the president doesn't want to give the media a victory lap because they're going to make it seem like we chased Waltz out. And once you do that, then there's blood in the water. And then they're just going to paralyze your administration with faux scandal after faux scandal, because once Waltz falls, they're going to want to take out Hegseth, who's the real America Firster at the Department of Defense. So he wanted to give Waltz something to save face for Waltz, but especially to save face for him and his entire team. I get it. I'll be honest with you. I don't like the move. I like firing Waltz or whatever, ousting Waltz and getting him out of national security advisor. That I agree with, not 100, 1,000%. I just don't like him as ambassador to the UN. Why? Because I don't trust him. If he was a leaker as national, or his people were leaking as national security advisor, why the hell would I want him over at the United Nations? Now, it's not as prestigious. You don't have the same access to sensitive classified information. To me, it's a demotion to go from the height of national security to basically, being our voice at the UN. It's where Trump put Nikki Haley. In other words, if you've got a political enemy in your administration, it's sort of our version of sending them to Siberia. Send them to the United Nations. They make a little bit of noise. They have fancy lunches. They vote the way we tell them to vote. They make a couple of speeches. But essentially, they can't damage the administration because they're not privy to classified sensitive information the way Waltz was, for example, as national security advisor. But still, to me, a mole is a mole is a mole. And I'd rather just clean house and get rid of him and Alex Wong and that whole gang altogether. But that's me. The question now is, who will replace Mike Waltz? And this is going to be a huge decision with a lot of, this is going to have a real impact. Who will he choose? It appears that the front runner for now is Steve Witkoff, who is Trump's envoy to the Middle East, to Israel, to Iran, also to Russia during this Russia-Ukraine war and the drive for a peace settlement. We'll see. But there's other people that names are being thrown around. Robert O'Brien, good solid pick. Michael Anton, I've had him on the show a few times. He's now at the State Department. A brilliant geopolitical thinker. And also very much MAGA and America first. Loyal all the way to the president and his agenda and his vision. So we'll see who the president picks. I like Michael Anton. I think he'd be perfect for the job. But I think no matter who, whether it's O'Brien, even Steve Witkoff, I think, would be much better than Waltz. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, shakeup now on Trump's national security team. Mike Waltz out, along with his deputy, Alex Wong. He has now been, he's going to be essentially moved over or transferred to be the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. So, let me ask all of you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Is the decision to move Mike Waltz from National Security Advisor to UN Ambassador, is it A, a promotion, B, a demotion? I'm just curious. A promotion, or basically the same, in other words, a lateral move, or B, an actual real demotion? I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in Nancy ER. You can also vote via X, my handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhn as in National ER. Okay, to me, I think it's clearly a demotion. To me, there's no comparison. UN ambassador, I mean, it's got some prestige, of course, but, I mean, the National Security Advisor, you are there at every cabinet meeting. You are there at every major national security or military decision. You are essentially the right hand of the president on national and military security issues. You have the ear of the president. You are privy to the most sensitive, intimate conversations and details of the administration when it comes to, say, war planning or national defense. Now you're just in New York, among other ambassadors and diplomats, voting on irrelevant resolutions and giving speeches and, you know, drinking Chardonnay and eating lobster. I mean, it's a nice life, but you're not in the thick of the action, that's for sure. And I think it was clear. Again, my view, you may disagree. I think Trump realized, I've got a leaker. I've got somebody I can't trust. I've got someone who's not a team player. I've got someone who, frankly, is not on my wavelength. And clearly that was a monumental gaffe with Signalgate, amateur hour, and it raised the question to me right away. What's he doing talking to Jeffrey Goldberg? You know, Mike Waltz's excuse was, well, he's on my contact list. Well, why is he on your contact list? And he was like, well, I talk to reporters all the time. You talk to the number one Trump hater in Washington, D.C., whose sole mission, whose salary is paid to go out and destroy Donald Trump? I'm sorry. That to me raised multiple red flags. Multiple red flags. And he just, Shazam, just coincidentally, he's added to this group chat and plunges the administration into this fake media scandal, and they got to deal with this for weeks on end. And he's trying to direct everybody in behind the scenes to go after Hegseth. who the media was, they really wanted to take out Hegseth. And I'll tell you why. Because Hegseth is loyal to the president. Hegseth is America first. Hegseth doesn't want to bomb and have a war with Iran. Hegseth backs the president's diplomatic peace initiatives with Russia and Ukraine. Hegseth is not a shill for the military-industrial complex. Whatever his flaws, whatever his faults. And, my wonderful wife can't stand the guy. She's practically counting down the days and the hours until she believes he's finally going to be tossed out on his rear end. But the war fighters love him, and I'll tell you why they love him. Because he's not going to put them into these unnecessary, needless wars. Because he's been in war, and he knows the horrors of war. And he knows how it's the soldiers on the front line who always suffer the most. So I hope Hegseth is safe, at least in the near future. But the fact of the matter is, to me, Waltz was a slow cancer. Spreading and spreading in that administration, and Trump had no choice but to cut him loose. And I think he made a strategic decision. If I cut him loose, I got another John Bolton on my hands. I got another guy who's going to write another so-called best-selling book. He's going to become a professional anti-Trumper, but this time from the quote-unquote inside. And like Bolton, he'll write his book, make his millions, then go on, this is CNN, and go on CNN or MSNBC and do the media rounds, and then just start attacking Trump and Hegseth and Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance, and they're going to get a month of scandals over this. A month of media stories. And so Trump said, let's send him to our equivalent of Siberia. I need someone at the UN. Elise Stefanik had to pull back because we can't afford to lose her seat. Let's throw this guy in there. And, that'll keep him on ice. And he won't go around selling books and bad-mouthing us. And I just need him to read a speech once in a while and vote the way we tell him to vote. So I kill two birds with one stone. I get rid of this clown, this Judas, and I send him off to the UN, limit media damage to me and my team, and then I can get someone who's much more professional, much more loyal, much more committed to what we're trying to do, whether it's Anton, whether it's O'Brien, or whether it's Witkoff. ABC is better than Waltz. So no matter what's going to happen, whoever he picks is going to be a solid improvement over Mike Waltz. So I look at this decision as Trump, honestly, making the best of a bad situation. As they say, making lemonade out of lemons. But that's me. I want to hear from you. Okay, Grace is texting me, my wonderful wife. She's texting the Kuhner man. And she's saying that she thinks Trump is making a mistake. That he should have just fired Mike Waltz right there, bit the bullet. It would have been a 48 to 72-hour media scandal. Most Americans wouldn't care. The media would crow a little bit, yes, but who cares? And then just simply move on. But by moving him to the UN, according to Grace, this is her theory, this is only going to give more ammunition to the media. They're going to continue to go after Trump. They believe they're going to continue to have access to Waltz, who's going to leak behind the scenes, and his dissatisfied underlings like Alex Wong, and that this is just going to continue to prolong the bleeding. That you've got, if you've decided to move on, then just move on. Now, I think Trump, with his counter argument would be, this is why I'm moving him to the UN. I'm moving him to the United Nations because this way the media can't say I fired him. So I'm nipping in the bud this media bloodbath and this media celebration that we brought Mike Waltz, a key Trump official, down over Signalgate. The last thing Trump wants to do is give the media a kill. to embolden the media to think that they can pick apart his administration. And you can tell it kind of took a lot of the air out of the story yesterday when first initially it was huge. Waltz is out. His deputy Alex Wong is out too. The media right away were like, you see, they're incompetent. This was a scandal. Heads had to roll. And then by the end of the day, well, he's just moving to the UN. Okay, maybe a demotion. I think it is, but whatever. But, okay, Waltz is still there. He's still collecting a check. He's still going to be a high-profile person. You're still going to be seeing him on the talkies. And so it took a lot of the sting out of the initial breaking news that Waltz was out as national security advisor. So Trump, I think, is saying, look, I removed the problem and I didn't give the media what they wanted, which is a trophy. I didn't give them what they wanted, which was a win. A win over me and my administration. And this way I've taken care of a problem and I've blunted the attack of my enemy, which is the media. So I think that would be Trump's counter-argument. Anyway, I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. And I think, to me, it raises two questions. And then I want to go straight to the phones, I promise. Number one, who the hell is vetting these people? I mean, most of his picks have been very, very good. As I said on X last night, Rubio, who, by the way, is going to be acting national security advisor. And I don't know how this guy sleeps at night because he's Secretary of State. He's now acting national security advisor. He's also acting administrator of USAID. And he's the acting archivist of the United States. I mean, the guy, he's got 4 positions now. But, you know, Rubio's been a great pick. Vance, I think, has been extremely good at as vice president. Hegseth, contrary to what the media claims, just ask the Houthis. I think he's been a very solid Secretary of Defense. Most of his cabinet picks have been excellent. Frankly, the only 3 I was not happy with were Waltz, who's now out, Pam Bondi, and so far Kash Patel as being a big disappointment. But outside of that, I think he's had a rock-solid cabinet. But on a couple of these picks, you're asking, who the hell vetted these people? Especially Mike Waltz. I mean, you can play the cuts. He badmouthed him in 2016. He badmouthed him throughout his first term. He badmouthed him after Joe Biden stole the election. He badmouthed him during the last couple of years. I mean, why would you get a guy like that on your team? And let me ask all of you, in some ways, the ultimate question. We're barely now 100 days into his presidency. And as you know, I think he's had an outstanding 100 days. But within 100 days, your top national security official is out. Within 100 days, he's got to go to, as I said, our version of Siberia. He's got to go to the United Nations because of a screw-up, whether it be Signalgate or whether he shouldn't have hired him in the first place or whether the long knives are out against him, whatever it is. And it's not just Waltz. His deputy, Alex Wong, the number 2, is out. Most of the National Security Council, out. They're going to be completely purged and replaced. Is there now this threat or perception of a threat that there's chaos within the Trump team and chaos within the Trump cabinet? How do you feel about the fact that Waltz is gone and gone so quick, so fast, so early? The guy barely lasted 3 months. 617-266-6868. Okay, let's go to Debbie in Waltham. Thanks for holding, Debbie, and welcome. Hello,
Yeah,
Debbie.
hello?
Yeah, Debbie, you're on the air.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. Good morning, Jeff.
Hi.
Me personally, I had already researched Waltz previously. He was more or less in Bush's pocket, and anybody in Bush's pocket is against Trump. He looked like he was sweating bullets during the interrogation from the Democrats on the leaked subject to the reporter. I could tell he was squirming in his seat. I'm kind of a people watcher. I watch their movements and whatnot. And aside from that, you have the other gentleman, Wu. He was also on the Bush side. And then we go to Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi was also a Bush person, and also on that side. And also with Pam Bondi, she was the DA of Florida, and she had Epstein in Florida many times with his clients, and she did nothing. She looked the other way. And I have no idea who is referring these people to Trump, because he can't make the same mistake he made the first time, hanging on to an AG too long. Get rid of her. She's doing nothing. And I think a lot of people that in my circle have been saying the same thing. We're absolutely totally disappointed with her. As far as Waltz,
Debbie, please don't swear, but your point is very, very well made. No, Debbie, look, I think you're right. He's going to cause more trouble. I don't trust him. He's a Bushy. And look, again, Laura Loomer is hit or miss, right? I've said this about Loomer many times. When she's on, man, is she on target. Other times, oh, boy, did she marry. It's like it's not even on the same planet, the same planet, the same atmosphere, the same universe. But on this one, she Loomered him. She really Loomered Waltz. And I remember I saw one of her threads, and she said, here's a clip of Waltz talking about Trump. And I'm not talking 10 years ago. This was just a couple years ago. And she asked the obvious question, do you trust this man to be the president's right-hand man on national security? And when you hear the way Waltz is just, he's a Nikki Haley, George Bush, Jeb Bush Republican. He's a Bushy, he's a neocon, he's a warmonger. And he was just spewing venom against Trump. So I'm like, why would you have him as national security advisor? Who the hell advised him to the president? Recommended him to the president? Who? I knew right. I said, this is not going to work. And then, Debbie, as you talked about, I don't know if it was Laura Ingraham. Don't quote me. I think it was Laura Ingraham. But it was one of these Fox News personalities where right after Signalgate, he sits down for an interview, and he was very evasive. Waltz was evasive. You could tell he was lying. You could tell he was covering up. You could tell he was the leaker. And that Alex Wong is deputy. Together, they were the leakers. And I remember at one point they're even asking him, but why would you have Jeffrey Goldberg in your contact list? Like, seriously, what do you have to say to a guy like that? His mission is to bring down Trump. So why, and not just, you called him once, you've called him many times. So what are you guys talking about? And he refused he just evaded, he dodged. He refused to answer the question. And that's when I said, this guy's a Judas. This guy's a Judas. Now, to me, you just fire a Judas. I know it's going to be 48, 72 hours. Oh, my God. We beat him. We got Waltz out. Whatever. Fine. Who cares? Move on. But now Judas is going to be at the UN. One of the things I love about Trump, he's got many outstanding qualities. But to me, one of the qualities that really stands out, he's not afraid to fire people. And he's not afraid to fire people quickly. And he doesn't care how it looks like. In other words, okay, Waltz has been there essentially 3 months. Well, that's really early to let someone go. I don't care. If you're not delivering, or in this case, you're lying and you're leaking, and I don't trust you, you're out. Bye. Too bad. You know, you had a shot, you blew it. Out next. Out with the old, in with the new. So I do like the fact that he's aggressive when it comes to getting rid of people that aren't working or aren't performing. I don't know if sending him to the UN, though, is a good move. I can see an argument, obviously. You don't want another loose cannon, a la John Bolton, writing another stupid memoir and blasting the administration and giving interview after interview after interview. And so you obviously don't want that. So, you know the expression, keep your friends close, keep your enemies even closer. So maybe you do move him to the UN. This way, you keep him part of the administration, you keep him quiet, and you've essentially neutered him. But I don't like leakers and Judases. My instinct always is, if you can get rid of them, get rid of them. But that's me. I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868 is the number. Caspar in Belmont. Thanks for holding, Caspar, and welcome.
Yes, you said exactly what I was going to say about keeping your enemies closer. And remember, Nikki Haley ran for president. You should tout this as a promotion so that you did not do what your enemies wanted you to do, which would have been just to fire him and say, see, he doesn't know how to pick his own people. You put him there and say, it's a promotion. I want him to get international experience. I want to set up my cabinet. I want all the people around me so that any one of these guys could run for president and beat any one of the Democrats that are running against, us. And we will always win because it's always about winning. And I think Trump is going to be playing three-dimensional chess on this, and he has to say, this is a promotion, and this is exactly what I wanted. That's the way you have to play it, and that's the way you have to spin it. And I think he'll be successful on it. And if you know what your leaker is, well, then you can leak the stuff you want leaked, or you can lie about what the leak is and let things come out and use it to your advantage. I think Trump's doing a great thing. His first term, he did not clean house and get rid of everybody. This time, he got rid of everybody, and he's being very careful about who he allows to stay close to him.
Well, guaranteed, Waltz is no longer close to him. That I can guarantee you, Caspar. Caspar, I'm just curious. Do you think Waltz, just in the heart of the matter, do you think Waltz deserved to be fired? In other words, was Signalgate bad enough of a scandal? Having him accidentally or deliberately, whatever, but let's just assume it's accidental, put Jeffrey Goldberg on that group chat, and then all the stuff that was leaked about the attack on the Houthis, was that worth getting rid of Waltz as your national security advisor?
Somebody can say whatever they want about how smart they are about social media. At the end of the day, I don't think anybody's smart about social media. But that position, you should have been smart about social media, and you should have said, this is the way you communicate, this is the way you don't communicate. And yes, in the perfect world, it's fireable, because you should know who you're sending stuff to. You don't just have a contact list and just say, oh, just send this to my contact list. Well, who's that? You should be vetting every single name on your contact list before you hit send. He said, Jay Kuhner. Well, no, that was Jeff Kuhner, or was that George Kuhner? He should have known every single name that was on there. That was a fatal mistake. But like I said, you have to play it that you did what you wanted to do, not what the other team wanted you to do.
Oh, great! I got to say, great analysis, Caspar. I got to tell you, great. I think you nailed Trump's thinking to a T. And he's like, what? I want to stand there, give them a victory like this, and they're going to crow that they took me down or took one of my guys down, and then make it into a whole. Look at this. He's lost his national security advisor. He can't pick the right person. And before you know it, this thing is going on for weeks and weeks. No, I promoted the guy. There. gave him a little bit of experience, a little seasoning in Washington. And then I said, Mike, UN, baby. I need a strong voice at the UN. That's you. And Casper, I don't know if you saw the coverage of the media. The first hour, when it was just he's out, oh, man, they were dancing on Trump's grave. I mean, you would think this is the beginning of Watergate. Who's going to be next? Hegseth? Are the dominoes about to fall? Then, when Trump came out in the early afternoon and said, yeah, no, I'm moving, yeah, he's out, but no, I'm moving him over to the UN. And he's going to do a great job. And he's my guy. I need a warrior in there. And before you know it, it's no longer a scandal. It's a lateral move. And so he took a lot of the teeth out of the aggressiveness of the media. He took a lot of teeth out of it, where suddenly it wasn't the administration is collapsing and Trump doesn't know what he's doing, to it's a shakeup. So, Casper, I think that's exactly what Trump wanted to do. That's how he wanted to spin it, and I think he did. Caspar, thank you very much as always. Good call. Really good call. David in North Carolina. Thanks for holding, David, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, David.
Just a simple point, and that is Waltz and Wong, national security, leaking information to the Atlanta. Question is, why isn't he prosecuted by the AG? That might shut up these people who continue to turn on Trump. That was just my point.
David, no, hold on. If you can just backtrack, who do you want prosecuted?
Waltz and Wong.
Oh, I'd love to. I agree. I'd love to see that.
National security? Are you kidding? And what was disclosed without or Hegseth knowing it? Anybody on Trump's staff should be prosecuted for leaking information and then fired and then let the AG take over on them.
Well, David, look, David, you're dead on. You're dead on. And I want to thank you for your courage, because you're saying what a lot of people are thinking. David, look, I would go even a little further, and you tell me if you agree or disagree. I don't believe Mike Waltz. I'll be honest, I don't believe him. I don't believe that he put Goldberg on accidentally. That's what's kind of saving him a little bit, right? Oh, it was an accident. It was through Alex Wong, his deputy, and Alex I don't know. You punch something in your phone, and suddenly this guy's name I don't know how it got on there. So they're trying to make it seem it was inadvertent, it was accidental, it wasn't intentional. I don't believe him. I'm telling you, I don't believe him. I think it was deliberate. And furthermore, why are the two of you talking to Goldberg? And when they track down the phones and the call logs, they've been talking to Goldberg for years. Both of them, for years. Now remember, Wong also served in Trump's first term in the State Department, like the North Korea Asia branch or division of the State Department. I want to know if Wong has been a career leaker. I think we need to know. So, number one, I don't believe it was accidental. I do believe it was deliberate. And this gets to my other point, David. Look, I said it at the time, but it bears repeating. I get a signal chat, a thread, a chat, group chat notification that, whoa, what's this? Signal, what's this? On Signal? Yeah. What? I'm in on a conversation with the Vice President of the United States? The National Security Advisor? The Secretary of State? The Secretary of Defense? Literally the inner circle of the president's national security team? And they're talking about war plans against the Houthis? Or whatever, attack plans against the Houthis? I'm telling you, my first instinct is, first of all, how did you get me on here? That's number one. I'm thinking like, oh my God. Number two, right away, I'm like, hey, listen, I didn't hack into this. I give you my word of honor. I don't know how, but I'm on this thread. I shouldn't be on this thread. This is Jeff Kuhner, WRKO. You know, I don't prosecute me over this. You know, I mean, I'd be like, really? I'm like, listen, I just got put on. I should not have been put on here. This is none of my business. I don't have access to this. I shouldn't have access to this. And, you know, please take me out right away and be notified. There's a leak. There's a mole. Someone has added me when they shouldn't have added me. That would be my honest reaction. Wouldn't that be yours, David?
Find out, right, through discovery. How long would it take if we had an AG, an FBI, to go in and send their agents in and take a look at all the transactions over the last 5 years and look at Wong and look at Waltz, even when he's in Congress? You'd find what you need to know, that there's no way this could have been by accident, because when you put somebody in a group chat, you have to go out and put them on it. So you consciously had to do that.
I agree. I completely agree. And I think Goldberg had no business being on that chat. And he can hide as a journalist all he wants. To me, I would have gone after Goldberg, and I would have gone after him hard. I'm sorry, man. You've been inadvertently, accidentally put on. I'm like, whatever, deliberate or not. But point is, you were not intended to be part of that group chat. And they add you, and like the little weasel that he is, and this went on for days. And he's listening, he's taking notes, he's taking shots, snapshots, and then he's leaking after he gathers all of this information? I'm sorry, you're disgusting. I mean, really, he's disgusting. He's disgusting. So I agree with you. I think he's very lucky he and Alex Wong did not facing jail time. And look, he's going to get a gig at the UN. And I'm telling you right now, David, everybody knows it. It's an open secret in Washington. Trump is going to keep him there if he can for 3.5 years. Why? Because the moment this guy resigns or is pushed out as the UN ambassador, he's going to write a memoir. He's going to get millions of dollars up front. They're going to give him a nice $5 million check and just blast the administration. And you watch. Waltz is going to blast Trump. He's going to blast JD. He's going to blast Marco Rubio. He's going to blast Pete Hegseth. And like Bolton, half the stuff is going to be completely made up. Just ridiculous stuff. You know, whatever. Trump is in the bathroom half the time. I'm not kidding. You know, what's he doing in the toilet? I don't know, but he's always in the toilet. Is that true, sir? Do you have a toilet problem? Like, that's how they roll. And then he's going to do the talkies. He's going to do the rounds. So you get into an administration like Trump. If you turn, it's big money. That's why the temptation is so huge for so many people. That's why Trump now surrounds himself with people he absolutely knows is loyal to him. He absolutely knows they're loyal to him. Because otherwise, you get Judases like this, and they're a dime a dozen. David, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. By the way, did you hear Bolton? I forget where. It may have been CNN. Don't quote me. Or it could have been Meet the Press or Meet the Mess on NBC. So don't quote me. He literally threatened Hegseth. He threatened Hegseth. He came as close to threatening Hegseth as you could possibly come. Like, in other words, you better step down or something's going to happen to you. Like, i.e. we'll kill you, or i.e. we're going to dig up information that's going to destroy you and your entire family. So the neocons want a war with Iran. And Hegseth is saying no, no, no. And that's why the long knives are out to get him. 617-266-6868. Ed in Marblehead. Thanks for holding, Ed, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Ed.
I really like your analysis on Waltz being exiled to the UN. I think it makes sense because, as you pointed out, it kills two birds with one stone, and it also is a way of keeping tabs on him. He's going to be under scrutiny the whole time he's there. He won't be able to monkey around with the way he would if he was cut loose. Now, but more importantly, what I think comes up next is who is Trump going to replace Waltz with? Why not Mike Flynn?
Oh, I love Mike Flynn. Please, Ed, he's my number one on almost every, CIA, Mike Flynn, FBI, Mike Flynn. Like, hell, I'm not kidding. Even Attorney General, Mike Flynn. For me, Mike Flynn is number one on everything. Ed, for whatever reason, I think it's family related. I don't want to get into it, but he doesn't want it. He doesn't want it. He's an advisor. Trump trusts him a lot. Flynn has a lot of weight with the president, but Trump has offered him position after position. In fact, I got to be careful how I couch this, but let me just say this. Susie Wiles was interviewed and said, well, I've spoken to the president many times, i.e. Trump, and his position is my position. Whatever Mike wants, Mike will get. That's how loyal Trump feels to Mike Flynn, because he sees how loyal Flynn was to him. He just doesn't want it. I don't know if he's too tired. I don't know if he's ill. I don't know if he's got family issues. I don't know what it is. I don't know if he's been so burned and beaten down. He just doesn't want to go, doesn't want to go at it again. But Trump would give it to him in a heartbeat. He doesn't want it. And I know for a fact, I got to be careful how I say this, Ed. I know for a fact Flynn has been offered plum positions in the administration. Plum. No, every time. No. Loves the president, advises the president. In fact, you don't even hear. President will talk to him one-on-one. Nobody even knows they talked. I mean, his lips are sealed, but he will not take a high-profile position. But so, from everything I've read, I think Trump wants to go with Witkoff, but there's a lot of pressure now against that. Not that they don't like Witkoff, but they don't think he's not the guy for national security. He's a deal maker. He's a negotiator. He's an envoy. He's somebody you send to, okay, let me hear your side. Let me hear the other side. And he's a detail guy who can split the difference and get two sides to come together. Think of like a brilliant negotiator or arbiter. That's Witkoff. And they're saying that's great, but that's not what you want as your head of national security. That's why there's a lot of pressure now to get O'Brien or to get Michael Anton. Michael Anton would get it, except, and I'm not saying this as a criticism, I'm just giving you an observation. Anton is not a good people person. Let me just put it to you this way. He's stiff. He's a bit cold. Doesn't know how to really work a room, has a hard time working with other people. Brilliant. His IQ is off the charts, knows the issues, he has a phenomenal grasp of the issues. He's written several incredible books. In many ways, he's the foreign policy mind of President Trump. So on the philosophical policy side, he's perfect for the job. But you got to work with, part of being a national security advisor is you're working with the vice president, you're working with the secretary of state, you're working with the secretary of defense. You got to be able to navigate different agencies, different personalities, and work together as a team. That's not Anton's strength. O'Brien is better at that. So we'll see what happens. But the front runner right now is Witkoff. If I was to pick now, if I was a Vegas guy, I would say my money would be on Witkoff. But if Witkoff stumbles early, watch out for O'Brien. Ed, final word to you.
All I can say, Jeff, is thank you for your insights on that. I was not aware that Flynn didn't want the job or any other significant positions in the administration.
I wanted him at FBI. I mean, I got to be careful how I say this, but I was pushing behind the scenes, FBI. That was Trump's first pick. I really shouldn't even be saying this. Trump went to Flynn and said, I want you to run the FBI. Now, it's a hard job. I mean, I'm just being honest. It's not just that you got tremendous opposition and, institutional hostility, but you're working long, hard, punishing days. It's a grueling job if you do it right. But Trump offered him FBI. Trump offered him CIA. I think Trump offered him national security initially. Wasn't Waltz. Waltz wasn't his first pick. It was Flynn. Flynn said no. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. There's an expression, personnel is policy. Who you appoint in many ways will decide whether you can implement your policies or not. Well, leave aside Mike Waltz and national security just for a second. Listen now to Tom Homan. He was asked by reporters, you promised that you were going to arrest the mayors of sanctuary cities. The mayor of Chicago, the mayor of Denver, the mayor of Los Angeles, and yes, the mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, Marxist Michelle. Well, listen now to Homan. I don't think these are idle threats. I don't think he's blowing smoke. Listen to what Homan just said. Roll cut 10, Mike.
The president signed an executive order just this week threatening to defund sanctuary cities for their policies. Why not just arrest the leaders who are harboring and shielding illegal aliens, actually terrorists, from deportation?
Wait to see what's coming.
Now, he says it's coming, that they're working behind the scenes, that they're getting these arrests, dotting their I's, crossing their T's, that they're getting all the paperwork ready, they're amassing all the evidence, all the facts, putting together an airtight case against these sanctuary city mayors. And by the way, that is true. Trump did sign an executive order a couple days ago saying, I don't care what the judges are saying, what these rogue activist judges are saying. We are going to defund sanctuary cities. We're going to revoke all federal funding. And if they continue with this opposition and this obstruction, then yes, we're going to start arresting them. I'm not going to put up with this much longer. And Homan now is telling everybody, get ready, because we've got 4 or 5 mayors, and we are going to make an example out of them. And I've been telling them over and over again, don't obstruct ICE. And they are doubling and tripling down. So it seems to me, unless either one of the sides blinks, this is like a game of chicken. We're headed now for a real constitutional clash and crisis. And if you look at the polling, and here, let me just play another cut here, just to give you, before I even give you the polling results. You've got Ilhan Omar. Remember her? Some people did something. The one who married her brother. And now, by the way, we have the marriage license certificate. She clearly married her brother to get him into the United States, to get him some kind of a green card or whatever. So here you have someone who openly supports Islamic terrorism, openly hates the United States of America, and has engaged in both incest and bigamy, because she was married at the time when she married her brother. So she's not just marrying the brother, she's also committing bigamy, okay? So she's asked now, she's on the sidewalk, this is in Washington, D.C., and she's asked by a reporter from the Daily Caller, Well, do you plan to go to El Salvador and protest on behalf of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the alleged MS-13 human trafficker, gangbanger, and wife beater? Listen now to her response. Roll cut 20, Mike.
Congresswoman Omar, I'm Miles Morrell with the Daily Caller News Foundation. Do you think more of your Democratic colleagues should be traveling to El Salvador to advocate on behalf of Abrego Garcia?
I think you should off. Yeah, that's
I'm sorry, what, Congresswoman? Who should?
you.
Why me?
I'm not taking any questions right now, but here you go.
Yeah, thanks.
You should F off? You should F off. By the way, he wasn't harassing her. He was asking her a simple question. You heard it. Maybe a tad tongue-in-cheek. You know, maybe a little like, hey, you guys want to keep expending political capital? Like, is this the hill you guys want to die on? But still, are you going to be going, and will more of your fellow Democrats be going to visit Abrego Garcia? F off. F off. What? To me? Yeah, F off. Now, I'm telling you, it's not just this is how she treats the media. This is what she thinks of the country. This is what she thinks of the United States. Okay, that's her attitude. Now, why is she reacting like this? Because now they're looking at the polls. Chuck Schumer is now down to 17% approval. 17. 1-7. The Democratic Party now has the lowest approval in its history. Well, since the history of polling, okay? So in the history of polling, the Democrats have never, ever, ever been lower. Their brand has been destroyed. And these idiots now are looking at this latest batch of polls and they're like, oh, so championing the cause of an MS-13 gang member, a human trafficker who likes to punch his wife's face through the wall? That didn't give us the bump that we were looking for? So now they're starting to realize that their defense of criminal illegal aliens and frankly terrorists is now blowing up in their face. And what's still incredible is they won't let it go. Politically, it's killing them. They won't let it go. So what you're going to see now over the next week is you're going to see a lot more arrests in these sanctuary cities. Holman is now leaking to the media that Boston is going to get a massive wave of arrests. So is Chicago. So is New York. So is LA. So is Denver, Seattle, Portland. They're going to come in hard and they're going to come in heavy. And I think that's when they may make their move on these sanctuary city mayors. So we are now heading for a massive constitutional crisis. I think there's no question now. Trump has the law on his side. He has the truth on his side. He has the American people on his side. They overwhelmingly support him on this. So I look at someone like Mike Waltz, and I'm like, if you're not part of the team, get rid of this guy. Because buckle up, because now it's going to get real. The first 100 days, those were nice executive orders, positioning the country now to do very well. Now Trump's going to get really serious about these deportations and about this naked obstruction that is coming from judges, from Democrats, and from sanctuary city mayors. Okay, my friends, please, whatever you're doing, you need to stop. I'm asking you, please stop. You need to hear now exactly what I'm going to say. During the 1850s, in the lead up to the Civil War, it was like a decade that never ended. It was constant arguing, constant bickering. Nothing ever changed. Nothing ever moved. Positions hardened. and the anger, the animosity between Republicans and Democrats, between one half of the country and the other half, it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. And eventually, it just led to an explosion. And we all know what happened. It was the worst war in the history of our country. More Americans died in the American Civil War than all of the other wars that America's fought in combined. Combined. So that's Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam, Korea, World War II, World War I, the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, the U.S.-Mexico War of 1848, the Spanish-American War. All the wars combined, still, you add up the number of American deaths, does not come close to how much we lost during the Civil War. Now, my point just being, they're starting to feel now, I'm being very honest, like the 1850s all over again. Now, remember, I want to make one last point because I want to talk about what's breaking, and it broke yesterday. The 1850s, the reason why it went for 12 years, or 11 years, from 1850 to 1861, before the whole thing, just we went at each other's throats. Remember, this was the age of the horse and buggy. This wasn't the age of global communications, global internet, in other words, it took them several weeks just to get to Congress. You found out about news literally weeks, if not a month after it happened. There were rarely, there were a few daily newspapers, but that was only in the very big cities. Most people, they get a weekly newspaper, a monthly newspaper. So news traveled much slower. People traveled much slower. So events developed much slower. What's changed now is everything moves at the speed of lightning. It's in a millisecond. Everything moves so quick. So that's why if you feel events are kind of sort of cascading out of control, it's because it's happening so fast. So here is now what's happening. Yesterday, I spent a good part, if not all of the show, talking about this crazy judge in California who issued an order barring Border Patrol agents from arresting illegal aliens without a warrant, which is, as I said, in direct violation of federal law and clearly obstructs law enforcement. She's aiding and abetting criminal illegal aliens. She's basically saying to ICE and Border Patrol, I'm preventing you from doing your job. If they pour in across the border, there's nothing you can do about it. You have reasonable suspicion someone's an illegal, you can't touch them. All right? So they're blocking Trump there. Now it's getting worse. A federal judge yesterday, listen now to this, issued a permanent injunction and now has barred the Trump administration from even using the Alien Enemies Act to remove Venezuelan gang members Tren de Aragua and transport them to El Salvador. U.S. District Judge Fernando Rodriguez, by the way, a Trump appointee. He was appointed by Trump in 2018. Now is the first judge to say that Trump's invocation of the Alien Enemies Act is quote-unquote unlawful and unconstitutional. So according now to Judge Rodriguez, listen to this, we are not at war with Tren de Aragua or MS-13. We are not being invaded, according to Judge Rodriguez. And so, Trump has no right to even invoke the Alien Enemies Act, according to Rodriguez. And so, because of this, he does not possess the lawful authority to round up, detain, or deport Tren de Aragua or MS-13 from the United States back to Venezuela or to El Salvador. So, in plain English, we now have a judge who's made himself president of the United States and who's now telling the president of the United States, you cannot invoke the Alien Enemies Act. You may call it a border invasion. I say it's not a border invasion. You may say they're terrorists. I don't say they're terrorists. You may say they pose a mortal threat to the country. I don't believe they pose a mortal threat to the country. And so you may think it's in the national interest to deport them. I don't believe it's in the national interest to deport them. So now they are literally preventing him from being able to deport Tren de Aragua or MS-13 or to even use the Alien Enemies Act, which, by the way, is embedded in the Constitution or law. It was passed in 1798. They had no problem then. It was used throughout the 19th century. They had no problem then. It was used in World War I. They had no problem then. It was used during World War II. They had no problem then. It's been used again and again and again throughout our nation's history. Suddenly now it's a problem. Now, on top of this, I mean, this is an incredible decision. On top of this, okay, listen now to this. Another judge, this time a Clinton appointee, ordered the release of 2 suspected Tren de Aragua members. This judge said, no, there's a couple, Julio Cesar Sanchez Puentes and Ludides Norelia Sanchez Garcia, came into the United States from Mexico and were granted temporary protected status by the Biden regime. President Trump, as you know, terminated the TPS program. And the couple was arrested earlier this month, early April, in early April at the El Paso airport in Texas. Well, the judge now ruled, no, you have to release them. You can't hold them. Why? Because I don't accept Trump's authority to having removed their TPS temporary protected status. But they're Tren de Aragua. I don't care. You have to release them. So now you've got judges just here, bang, bang. You've got one judge saying you cannot deport Tren de Aragua, period. You can't even use the Alien Enemies Act to round criminal illegals up and deport them, period. And now you've got another judge saying you've got to release Tren de Aragua. No, you can't even hold them. Release them. Now, we are in a constitutional crisis. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this now. Okay? There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Either these unelected, rogue activist judges are running this country, or we, the American people, through our elected representatives, are running this country. And what you're now watching is you're watching now 700 judges basically say, we've elected ourselves president of the United States. The executive branch, you don't run this country. We run this country. Congress, you don't run this country. We run this country. You may want to deport gangbangers and terrorists and criminal illegals. We're not going to let you. The voters may have voted for you to do it. We're not going to let you. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Look, I think Trump now knows this is an historic presidency. It's clearly an inflection point in the history and direction of our country. And the Democrats now are making their last stand. And their last stand is within the corrupt judiciary. These are outrageous rulings. It's a clear abuse of power. They're now literally dictating to the President of the United States whether he can invoke the Alien Enemies Act or not. I mean, really, what's next? That he's going to have to, what, make a deal with Russia over Ukraine or make a deal with Ukraine over Russia? I mean, I can't believe I'm watching what I'm seeing. And so now I want you to, this is where we are as a country. Our judges, not all, only a minority, but still, rogue activist judges, lawless judges, now are telling the President of the United States of America he cannot deport the most vicious transnational gang in the world, Tren de Aragua, designated by our own State Department as a foreign terrorist organization, which, by the way, they were sent by the Maduro regime in Venezuela to murder, rape, and pillage here in the United States. They're an extension of a hostile anti-American regime, a proxy, a terrorist proxy. And Trump can't deport him? Now, furthermore, because this is an insurrection, you're going to say, well, come on, Jeff, that's a bit strong. It's a legal insurrection. Judges now in Colorado, judges now in other states, in Texas, South Texas, North Texas. You have judges now across the country, liberal activist judges, who have now issued injunction after injunction after injunction, saying Trump does not have the right to deport either MS-13 or Tren de Aragua. So we can't even get... Remember the Democrats used to say it was about the children? Do you remember? It's about single mothers and children. Don't deport the children, for God's sake. We're not talking children now. We're not talking single moms. We can't deport murderers, rapists, human traffickers, drug dealers, child molesters, criminals. Because they don't want Trump to deport illegals. That's what this is about. No, you are not going to get your mass deportations. No. You see, this is what the Democrats now are trying to enforce. It was okay for Joe Biden to allow 20 million illegal aliens to pour into our country with no process whatsoever. There was no process. They just poured in. They just came across the border, one after another. Okay, hordes of them. But now, since they're here, it's going to take years and years and years, and probably never, to be able to even try to deport the people that he let in. Because suddenly now, everybody and his grandmother has quote-unquote due process. They are now deliberately negating the election. He ran on securing the border. They're now trying to completely reopen the border again through judicial fiat. He ran on deporting all of the illegals. They're now preventing him. He said the criminals and the terrorists were going to go first. Now they're blocking and preventing him. And now the question that we face as a country is the same one that we faced in 1861. Shall we be or not be? are we going to be able to exist as a united country based on a constitutional republic in which the will of the voters is going to be respected? Or are the Democrats going to succeed again? Because the issue of illegal aliens is the issue of slavery of our time. That's what it is. Just like they defended slaveholders and slavery in the 19th century and fought a war in order to protect their power and their privilege, they are doing the exact same thing now. Illegal aliens are modern-day slaves. They're trafficked the way the slaves were. They work for cheap, for next to nothing. The cheap labor, that's what they love. And they provide them with an endless stream of potential political support. And the Democrats feel they own them. They own them. They literally own them. And they are willing to destroy this country and overturn the will of the people, the executive branch, the legislative branch, every norm, every institution, in order to keep and preserve their power. And I'm telling you, this is like, all of these compromises that you saw in the 1850s where they're arguing and arguing and arguing and bickering and bickering. They're fighting over Nebraska. They're fighting over Kansas. They're fighting over the territories. It's the same arguments over and over and over and over and over and over. And that's what you're starting to see now. They can't accept the fact, and they won't accept the fact, they refuse to accept the fact they lost. They lost a free and fair election. They lost the White House, they lost the House, they lost the Senate, they don't control the Supreme Court, so now burn the whole damn thing down. Now, Trump has a major decision to make. He can either now tell these judges, go pound sand. Look, guys, this is ridiculous. You're getting more ridiculous, more outlandish, frankly, more absurd by the day. So now you're even telling me I can't invoke the Alien Enemies Act? Are you on drugs? Now I can't even deport one member of Tren de Aragua? So what we're just going to keep them? Keep murdering us? That's your solution? Keep them all here? And what the voters say, who cares? And what the people want, who cares? And what federal immigration law says, who cares? You guys now, so I'm sorry, you guys you're even outdoing King George III. He was at least a legitimate king at the time. You guys are making yourself 700 kings, 700 presidents. So you guys get to decide what we can do, what we can't do, who has power, who doesn't have power. He's either going to say, to pull an Ilhan Omar, F off, okay? If it's good enough for the Democrats, should be good enough for us, F off, or he's got to take it now right to the Supreme Court. Address the country, point out these high-profile cases, and say, I don't know what John Roberts is doing. It's enough. Whatever he's doing, it's enough. The Supreme Court needs to rule. Can I deport criminal illegal aliens? Yes or no? Can I deport foreign terrorists? Yes or no? Can I use the Alien Enemies Act? Yes or no? Does every single judge now, can they dictate foreign policy? Yes or no? Does their will usurp that of the voters and the entire executive branch? Yes or no? That's it. He has to address the country. Now, if the Supreme Court is smart, they're going to side with Trump on every issue. Because if they don't, and this is my fear now, I think the American people are losing respect for the courts every day. I think they're losing respect for the judicial branch every single day. And pretty soon, we're not going to give a damn what the courts say on anything. And if we go down that road, I'm telling you, it's going to be very dangerous for the country. So, to the Democrats, you lost the election. Pick up your ball and go home. But this strategy of lawfare, of a judicial coup against the president and the voters, this strategy of constant nonstop obstruction, this strategy of trying to destroy the executive branch and the powers of the presidency, I am telling you, is going to lead to the destruction of the Democratic Party, and if you guys are not careful, to the destruction of America. Agree, disagree. The judges now are making their rulings. What do you do with judges who are out of control and issue illegal, unconstitutional, frankly treasonous rulings? What should Trump do? And seriously, where the hell is Congress? 617-266-6868, 8 o'clock, caller of the week, Kuhner's Call Log.
It's time for Kuhner's Call Log, where we showcase our favorite caller from the week.
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Thanks for holding, Mike.
I think Trump's doing a great job. I think he's doing such a good job that the power people don't want his stuff to succeed, because that's where all their control is. If they control what we have to pay for goods, they ramp up the stuff we need for necessities, and they charge what they want. What ends up happening is, with the tax structure and getting rid of taxes on the middle class, that frees us up and gets us out of the control of the one world government people, or the politicians. The politicians' base of power is in redistributing our money they're collecting. If they don't have the tax base from the middle class, they can't hold that over us, and we can buy and sell what we want at our own pace. They won't have that money coming back through the coffers right back to the Democrats by way of donations from all of the big globalists. So they're losing money on three different fronts. They're losing money on possibly on the Social Security scam. They're losing money from the elites because they're not kicking back because they're not selling the things that they want to sell from other countries to the United States. And they're losing the tax base, which is their money to control us. So if they lose all three of those, Trump's done a fabulous job. He's taken us out of the dark ages.
And next week, it could be you on Kuhner's Call Log.
Please, don't be a stranger. Call again. Best audience in the business. I don't know how Mike does it. I really don't. How he picks these callers of the week, because to me, it's like being at a buffet. Where do you start first? What do you pick? The lasagna, the steak, the fish, the chicken, the French fries, the pizza. Where do you start? So anyway, okay, let's unleash the hounds. The lines are jammed. 617-266-6868. Jerry on Cape Cod. Thanks for holding, Jerry, and welcome. Comrade, how are you, my friend?
I'm going to El Salvador. Jeff, I got to tell you, President, you nailed it. There is a deep divide in this country, and I'm afraid we're going down a road that we're not going to be able to come back from. I think you're going to see basically guerrilla warfare in this country. People on the left and right are going to get targeted, and they're going to be eliminated, Jeff. It's that simple. It's coming. I think it's going to come to a head. It's sad.
Well,
But Jeff,
look, I don't want to think like that just yet. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong, obviously, Jerry, but I don't want to think like that yet. Look, we have a lot to lose as a country if we go down that road, and I'm hoping eventually, calmer heads, saner heads will prevail. But we've got to act. Nature abhors a vacuum. Congress has to act. Roberts has to act. The Supreme Court has to act. The DOJ has to act. Everything is fine if we act. Everything's fine. We will win. But we have to act. And I know Trump is willing to act. And I know Holman is willing to act. So the question is everybody else willing to stand up? I mean, look, Jerry, you know this better than I do. 90% of life is balls. I'm sorry to put it so crudely. Do you have the guts, the bravery, the courage to do what needs to be done? And that's life. And so either we have the steel, the spine, to take our country back, or are we just going to let these judges roll us with some of the most outlandish, ridiculous, absurd rulings I've ever seen in my life? What they're now telling us is we can't even deport criminal gangbangers. I mean, even Joe Biden didn't argue that. Even Kamala Harris didn't argue that. So, look, we're going to find out now. It's going to be a week, 2 weeks tops, what Pam Bondi's made of. Kash Patel, Justice Roberts. We're going to find out now what the Supreme Court is made of. So if you really care about the rule of law and the Constitution, it's time for everybody to step up. These judges have to go to jail. These judges have to be put in their place, and they all need to be overturned now. Now. Jerry, final word to you.
Jeff, I want to go back to the National Security Council for a minute.
Yes, go ahead.
He needs to move Keith Kellogg, Admiral Mike Rogers, forget about Robert O'Brien, Fred Fleitz, Derek Harvey, Devin Nunes, General Anthony Tater, and Colonel Douglas McGregor. He's going to surround himself with those people for national security. If he does that, the country will be fine.
Jerry, what do you think about Waltz being essentially exiled to Siberia, to the United Nations? Was that a good move on the part of Trump, or should he have just out and out fired him and cut him loose?
Good place for him, the United Nations. He could just hobnob with the Ukrainians now.
Jerry, thank you. Jerry, thank you very, very much for that call.
Thanks, Jeff.
Take care, buddy. Have a nice weekend. 617-266-6868. Let's go to Kim in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Kim, and welcome.
Hi, good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Kim.
Thank you very much for all you do for us. You're amazing.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
You stole a lot of my thunder. I'm driving into Boston now trying to contain myself. But you know what we need to do? Joey there didn't care about any of them when he let them cross over and break every single law for 4 years. So I think what Trump needs to do is he needs to go on offense and let them force it to the Supreme Court, because to go on defense is just slowing everything down. Let him force it. Like you said, he is the only one, truly, that I think has the balls to do it. So you know what? Let the chips fall where they may. And you're right, 1,000%. Let's see what Kash Patel and Bondi do. This is getting a little ridiculous. It really is. But I don't understand another thing that's really bothering me. Why are we giving the media so much attention? Why don't we do what they did with Trump and not play this every single night on TV? Just don't even put it on. We know it's out there. Don't give them any media time, because that's what they want. And just continue to go on office and pound them and force it to the Supreme Court. And like you said, in the next week or two, let's see what happens, because this is getting a little ridiculous. And I truly think I don't know what's going to happen if we don't get this done to the country.
Well, Kim, look, this is what's going to. I'll tell you right now. This is what's going to happen. There are all these lawsuits, and it's deliberate. This is all part of a strategy. And that's why you're seeing ruling upon ruling upon ruling upon. They're trying to overload the system now with all these rulings against Trump. And so Trump now is going to go to the Supreme Court and say, I want all of this expedited, an expedited review. And we're going to see now what they're made of. We're going to see what Roberts is made of. We're going to see what the Supreme Court is made of. Roberts doesn't want to touch this. He's afraid. He's afraid. He knows Trump is right on the merits. He knows constitutionally, legally, Trump is completely within his authority and power. But if he overturns all of these lower court liberal rogue activist judges, he's no longer the darling of the Washington Post. New York Times won't do puff pieces about him. So he's petrified about his reputation. And I think ultimately he's being blackmailed over the Epstein files. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, some really good texts coming in. You can text us 70470, 70470. This is from 603. Jeff, ignore the judges. Carry on with the deportations. Trump should just do, Jeff, what the Democrats do. Just declare that the courts have no jurisdiction and continue with the aggressive deportations and then arrest a few more judges and sanctuary city mayors. Well, let me just tell you this, 603. If anyone has, again, forgive me, the balls to do it, the cojones, as the Spanish would say, to do it, it's Trump. It's Trump. And just so that you know, he's not stopping on the deportations. Apparently now he's decided to pull the trigger on arresting sanctuary city mayors. And I don't think he's going to allow these judges now to cow and intimidate him and block him. Now, he has just come out. It broke about maybe 2 minutes ago. Harvard is going to have his tax-exempt status revoked. Yes. Yes. So he's telling Harvard, you're not going to bully me. You want to take me to court? Okay. Now you just lost your tax-exempt status. Suck on that. He's now just signed an executive order cutting funding, taxpayer funding, all funding. Thank you, Jesus, for NPR and PBS. 40 years we've been asking for this. Finally, he's delivering. My point being, he's willing to do what other presidents are afraid to do and what almost every other Republican has been petrified to do. So if anyone has the stones to say, no, you want to make your ridiculous orders? You enforce them. The deportations continue. If you don't like it, you take it to the Supreme Court. So I've got full confidence that Trump, in the end, will be the one that stands. He'll be the one left standing. But I got to tell you this. The Republicans in Congress, useless. I'm not happy with Pam Bondi. I'm not happy with Kash Patel. And I'm telling you, the Supreme Court is not covering itself in glory. I'm just calling it the way I see it. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Nick in Weymouth. Thanks for holding, Nick, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, I'm not too thrilled about the name you just mentioned as well. And I'll throw one out there real quickly. No, it's not germane. It's not the topic, and I understand why it shouldn't be. There's a case going on in Boston with a murder of a cop in Canton. Why did the U.S. federal court here, district, drop that case that they were investigating. I believe there's people in this office here that are still protecting people who are corrupt in this state. It goes back to Biden. That's all I'll say about that.
Well, look, Nick, I think that's what we're starting to really see in Trump's second term, is how corrupt the judiciary has become under the last couple of years under Biden, the way the FBI here. This story broke yesterday. They've got FBI agents. The emails have been released. FBI agents were cheering the arrest and conviction of Peter Navarro because he was Trump's top, trade advisor, and is again his top trade advisor. So under Biden, we saw how corrupt and politicized the FBI became, how corrupt law enforcement at the federal level became, and now we're seeing how corrupt so much of the judiciary has become. And so again, Trump is smoking them all out. That's why you got to purge the FBI. You've got to purge the CIA. You've got to purge the DOJ. And these rogue activist judges, they got to go. They got to go. They're not judges. I guarantee you that ridiculous, that ridiculous judge that was it Thurston that I talked about yesterday. You need a warrant to arrest an illegal alien or detain an illegal alien? On what planet? I guarantee you, no legal background. This woman is not immersed in the law, never went to law school. Again, I don't want to repeat myself. This is like taking Ilhan Omar and making her a judge. This is like taking AOC and saying, okay, here, I'm going to appoint you as a district judge. Go. What kind of rulings do you think you're going to get? This is what you're going to get. So if you're going to abuse the judiciary by clearly appointing people who are unqualified and frankly corrupt, then why should we show them any respect? If they're going to behave in a lawless fashion, if they're going to abuse their power and authority, ignore them. I think you should get rid of them, but at a bare minimum, ignore them. Okay, yeah, okay. You want to make that kind of you want to make a fool of yourself? You make a fool of yourself. I'm not following your garbage. Nah, go ahead. You appeal. Go ahead. You made your decision. You enforce it. 617-266-6868. Al in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Al, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you, my friend?
I'm very good. How are you, Al?
I'm doing well. Hey, I don't think we're connecting the dots here, but if you go back and look at the judges that have been ruling against Trump, they're all Hispanic. So is Rodriguez.
Well, Thurston is not, right? Jennifer Thurston isn't. Boasberg isn't.
They've received money from the cartels.
Oh, that's something different. Yeah. No, I think there's money involved. Oh, I think you're definitely correct there, Al. They're taking money from NGOs tied to the Democrats, and I think they're starting to swim in cartel money. I think there's no question, Al.
I'm connecting the dots, and a lot of these judges are definitely the way I see the legal system in New Hampshire, in Massachusetts. There's a lot of corruption and a lot of money flowing in from the cartels. There was a guy up here a few years ago who got sued for defamation by Sununu. He had a laptop that showed the cartels in connection with Sununu, and that the doctor and his wife that was found in Bedford, New Hampshire, dead in the home. He had connections to all the cartels.
Al, I'm up against a hard break. Can you please hang on? Okay, very quickly, I want to go back to Al in New Hampshire, because I think he's saying, frankly, what tens and tens of millions of Americans are thinking, but these, Americans are not willing to say it out loud. And so, just to piggyback off of what Al was saying, here, U.S. District Judge David Briones, hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, Briones, or Briones, anyway, a Clinton appointee, ordered, this is just recently now, ordered the release of 2 suspected Tren de Aragua members. And basically said, no, you don't have the right to remove temporary protected status that was granted to them by the Biden regime. They may be Tren de Aragua, but you're not going to get rid of their TPS status. So notice, Biden can willy-nilly, arbitrarily, unilaterally give TPS status to anybody he wants, but Trump can't revoke it? And you have to ask yourself this question. Why is this judge, who releases Tren de Aragua? If it's possible, they're even more vicious than MS-13. So you want to release Tren de Aragua into the public? And by the way, Tren de Aragua does a lot of business with the cartels, just like MS-13 does. Who do you think brings in their drugs? It's Tren de Aragua, MS-13. Who do you think, does the sex trafficking for them, the human trafficking? They're kind of like the boots on the ground. The cartels are at 35,000 feet, and these are their foot soldiers. Who releases these kinds of animals into the public? And then you've got other judges coming out and saying, you can't deport a single member of Tren de Aragua? Or you've got another judge coming out and saying, you can't use the Alien Enemies Act to deport Tren de Aragua or MS-13, even though, forget that they're transnational criminal gangs. Okay, just let that go for a second. And that they're some of the most brutal, vicious, murderous gangs in the world. Let that go. They're now designated by our own State Department as foreign terrorist organizations. So you've got these rogue, activist, liberal, left-wing, crazy judges who are now telling the President of the United States, you can't deport foreign terrorists as they murder, rape, and pillage and massacre Americans on American soil? No. Look, that's crazy. That's insane. It's absurd. They're not that stupid. Now, they may be fanatics. They may be following the orders from their communist masters, the Democratic Party. But let's be realistic here. Not everything is for, to stop Trump. I think there's a lot of money to be made here. The cartels are flush with tens of billions of dollars. They basically control Mexico. Mexico is a narco state controlled by the drug cartels. And their tentacles go all the way to Venezuela, into Colombia, into many countries in Central America. That's why they hate Bukele, the president of El Salvador, because he's hammered them. He's the only one with the balls to stand up and hammer him. And what did Bukele tell President Trump? Last point, because I want to go back to Al. I can read to you directly the quote. He says the only way for you to save your country is you have to get rid of these arrogant, corrupt judges. You have to impeach them and remove them, or else you'll never be able to reform the system. He goes, I realized in El Salvador that judges were the judges were taking money. They were on the take. And so they kept making these outrageous rulings protecting these gangs. And that's what we said, forget it. If you give these judges that kind of power, we will never solve the problems of gang violence and Tren de Aragua, and especially MS-13, which turned El Salvador into the murder capital of the world. Now they're all in jail for 100 years. He's cleaned up El Salvador. It's become now, from the murder capital, I'm not kidding, one of the safest places on earth. They've got a booming tourist industry now. And anybody that goes, look it up, don't take my word for it. The old people in particular, pictures of this guy, Bukele, are everywhere. Everywhere. Coffee mugs, glasses, napkins, everywhere you go. They love the guy. I once said, well, what was the key to your success? He goes, you got to get rid of the corrupt judiciary. Or else forget it. They tie your hands. My point being, I think Al is onto something. Follow the money. No. What I'd love to do, no, I'm serious, if I'm Trump, here's what I call up Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, and say, you know what? I want an IRS audit on these judges. I want to know the sources of money they have coming in. I want to know. Are they getting illicit sources of money? And who are they getting it from? Because the way they're going to bat for these cartels and for these gangs, it's not normal. Really, it's not normal. I'm just giving you my honest opinion. I wasn't born yesterday, I'll tell you this. Agree, disagree. Let's go back to Al in New Hampshire. Al, you were making the point that even in New Hampshire, this far north, the corrupting influence of the cartels can be felt, both politically and with the judges. Please, Al, pick up where you left off.
Well, the gentleman I was talking about had a laptop that showed El Chapo was shopping for judges in Bedford, New Hampshire, Manchester, and he wanted to be transferred to New Hampshire. And Sununu was tied to that, and a few other prominent people were tied to that. So now if you got corrupt governors or whoever, and they're allowed to appoint judges, they're going to appoint in their favor corrupt judges. So you need to follow the money. You need to really vet people more thoroughly before you put them in places of power. Not just because they donated to you and they pat you in the back, they shouldn't be getting into power.
You know, Al, I just, to reinforce what you're saying, and Sandy and Mike can confirm this, do you know I almost can't take a donut from somebody, a muffin, a cup of coffee? Because if they happen to come on my show for whatever reason, that can be considered pay to play. I swear. Like, the strict rules, and I'm a talk show host. I'm not a governor. I'm not a member of Congress. I'm not a judge. I'm not making legislation. I'm not deciding life or death issues. I'm just the guy behind the microphone. I can't take a freaking cup of coffee or, you know, a muffin or a donut or, hey, Jeff, would you like something? You know, I'm like, I don't know if I interview this person, they're going to say it's pay to play. That I got bribed with a Boston cream donut. I mean, Mike, Al, forgive me. That's how, I'm telling you, that's how insane. I'm overregulated. And yet you look at these judges and these politicians and they get away with bloody murder. 617-266-6868 is the number. Bill in Salem. Thanks for holding, Bill, and welcome.
See, Jeff, it's Phil, your fellow Croatian.
Hey, Bill, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. Hopefully you and yours are also. Listen, it's not unheard of for presidents to actually ignore Supreme Court. Andrew Jackson, when ordered by the Supreme Court in a 9-0 unanimous ruling to send Union troops down to protect the Cherokee Nation against the Tennessee and Alabama militia, he said no, saying that he would not protect a sovereign nation, which Cherokee Nation was, by having Union troops against American citizens. In other words, citizens first. He wound up on a $20 bill, didn't he?
That's right.
But there are also other tools that President Trump can use. RICO, for example, it's well known that they deal in drugs, they deal in human trafficking, they deal in money laundering. So they can use RICO on that. These judges are out of control. There's no question. And again, as you said, and I'm all over the place here because there's so many things. It's like trying to kill the hydra. You cut one head off and two or three pop up again. Whether or not they're getting money from the gangs. I mean, who in their right mind would allow known criminals who have no right to due process because they are not citizens? They are not protected by the Constitution. What the Republicans need to do, and it should be changed to eunuch party because they seem to have lost their stones, or they've traded them for ping pong balls because they're round but there's nothing inside. And they lack the testicular fortitude. But what they ought to do is bring impeachment against Roberts because Roberts has violated the Constitution many times, even though he's sworn to uphold it. Heck, you could go back to the election where the people of Texas filed suit against Pennsylvania for changing the rules of the voting. Their Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, changed the rules, and Roberts refused to take the case, saying that he would not let the Supreme Court decide an election. Oh, but then they can decide criminal law. They can decide immigration, which is exclusively the executive branch's power. I mean, people of America have to wake up and have to pick up a history book. And they have to read and stop watching the media and going on YouTube. What they have to do is pick up an old history book, not a revisionist one. And let me tell you, they'll learn a lot more about this country and what's right and wrong and what is legal and not legal according to the United States Constitution. And first and foremost, it should be mandatory reading for every citizen in this country to read the Constitution because they have no idea just how beautiful an article the articles of that Constitution are. It has brought tears to my eyes reading it because it is the greatest experiment in the history of mankind. And as Jefferson said, we are either a nation of men or a nation of laws. And if we are not a nation of laws, we will fail.
Bill, very eloquent. Again, very Croatian, I have to say. Very eloquent, very powerful, very articulate, very spoken from the heart. Bill, let me ask you this, and if I'm getting too personal, please tell me. What's your theory? Why do you think now there's judge after judge after judge, activist after activist, liberal after the liberal, Democrat judge, all of them now together, almost as if it's coordinated, all of it now within a week, ruling after ruling after ruling after ruling. And in the end, when you put all the rulings together, you can't arrest an illegal alien without a warrant. You can't deport an alien. You can't even deport Tren de Aragua. You can't even deport MS-13. Hell, you can't even detain them. You have to release them. You can't even use the Alien Enemies Act. So, in essence, Trump cannot deport, Trump cannot secure the border, Trump cannot implement what he was elected to do. What do you think is driving this? Why are all these judges now willing to risk the loss of their reputation, their credibility? Frankly, they're becoming an absolute joke, a national joke. I mean, they're stupid. I mean, these are stupid rulings. Seriously. Absurd, ridiculous, insane rulings. People are laughing at them. Why, Bill? What do you think is happening? What's going on here?
This person here thinks personally that they don't give a damn about their reputation. They're feathering their nest. I do believe if you follow the money, as my grandfather used to say, in the old country, you want the answer, you follow the money. These judges are overpaid. They have become activists. Instead, they're supposed to follow the rule of law and act with jurisprudence. There's the key word, jurisprudence. And it's a beautiful word that's created from two different words, okay? They're not. They're judicial activists. And therefore, they're abrogating their duty to exercise jurisprudence. Number two, President Trump should merely go speak to the American people, hold up a copy of the Constitution, and say, I'm not listening to these judges because they have no right with regards to making a decision on immigration. And if need list comes, he's commander-in-chief. He should declare war on Trenta Agua and on MS-13. Declare war. Go to Congress. Let's see which Republicans do have testicular fluid. Let's have an act of war in defense of the nation, in defense of this great nation.
I love it. Bill, I love it, love it, love it. Bill, don't get me wrong, my fellow Croatian American. I only have eyes for my wife, but I love you in a non-sexual way, my friend. I love it. If Trump's people are listening, you want the silver bullet? Here it is. You get Mike Johnson in your office, you get Senator Thune, and you say, you know what? I'm going to give my lawyers the weekend. We're going to draft together piece of legislation. You guys are going to vote on it in the House. You're going to vote on it in the Senate. A declaration of war against the Mexican drug cartels, against Trenta Aragua, against MS-13, against all transnational criminal gangs that have infiltrated the United States. I want a declaration of war. I want it passed. I will sign it. Congress, you do your job, and then these rogue judges can kiss my rear end. That's what he's got to do. And then put everybody on the record. Put everybody on the record. And I'm telling you, you're right, Bill. He gets a declaration of war against these cartels. He's going to have 80% support from the American people. It's going to be the only freaking war the American people want. This is the war. And then, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I can't invoke the Alien Enemies Act? Kiss off. I can't deport them? Kiss off. They all need lawyers? Kiss off. They all get due process? Kiss off. And then you can send ICE. I mean, you can, with this, it gives you, the options are almost limitless. Then you can get a massive bill, load up resources for ICE, you pour them into the sanctuary cities. And if the mayors, the sanctuary city mayors obstruct them, arrest their ass. We're at war. You're either with us or against us. Bill, you're a genius. You're a genius, my friend. Okay, Bill, thank you very much for that call. And by the way, my grandfather, speaking of, his grandfather from the old country, my grandfather from the old country had the exact same expression. That's where I got it from. Follow the money. He would always tell me that. Jeff, you want to know what's really happening? Follow the money. And I'm like, okay, Grandpa. And as I get older, I'm like, the guy was a genius. Maybe he had an 8th grade education. I don't care. That was old world knowledge, old world experience. You can't beat it. 617-266-6868. Sharon in Wilmington. Thanks for holding, Sharon, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff.
Hi,
Thank you
Sharon.
for taking my call.
My pleasure.
Good morning, Jeff. Thank you for taking my call.
Yes, well, welcome. My pleasure.
I
Go
have
ahead,
one
Sharon.
question. All right. I have one question for you. Yes. Are you already tired of winning yet? I mean, you look at everything that Trump has done. I mean, you can even listen to the little commercial that you have when you said, how are you going to win if they're going to this election? He just says, well, we got 17 locations mapped out, and he doesn't sound like he's nervous about it at all because he wasn't. And I mean, when we had 2 people stuck on the space station for over a year, we can do that. We can get them. He has 2 impeachments against him. Well, those were overturned. He went and he had been at even, and he's still walking. I mean, it's like he takes everything, he looks at it carefully, and he figures out a plan, and he figures out, how can I go and trap these people that are trying to go and make everything go bad for me? And he lets them just fall all over themselves to the point where it gets ridiculous. And then everything 5 minutes later, he turns it completely around. And that, I'm just sure he's going to do this time. I mean, last time lawfare got him, in trouble. That's when they had to spend all that, indicting him and all of this other stuff. And now he can go and he turn this completely around. And I don't have a worry at all because I know that's what he's going to be doing. He's got a plan for everything. He's already playing chess 10 levels ahead of anything
that's what
anybody
I like
else
about him.
can do.
No, you're right, Sharon, and that's what I like about him. He's a problem solver. He's very pragmatic. I could play you the cut. I want to take as many calls as possible. But yesterday at that speech, I thought it was a great speech in Alabama, and he said, "Look, we've had generals, we've had politicians, we've had many people elected as president of the United States." He said, "I'm truly the first businessman ever elected as president." And he goes, "I'm not trying to brag. I'm just telling all of you, I think it's the key to my success. Because I look at things from a business entrepreneurial point of view. When others see a challenge, I see an opportunity. When, I always see a way to solve a problem, to make it even better, to improve it. And I always see a way we're going to make money as a country and lift the standard for everybody." And look, if Trump's people are listening, I think he's got to go for the checkmate move. The judges now have played their hand. They have really exposed themselves. If there's a silver lining in all this, Sharon, they've now come out, and the Democratic Party, in unison, they've now said, we're not going to deport terrorists. The terrorists must stay. The gangs must stay. The Trender Aragua, MS-13, the violent, criminal, murderous, raping, illegal aliens, they get to stay. Nobody, not even the worst criminals, none of them will get deported. So they've become now the party of murderers and rapists. They really are now Dems 13. That's what the Democratic Party has become. And they've been so exposed now, I don't think they can ever go back. They have permanently ruined their brand. And if I'm Trump, now I call in Johnson, I call in Thune, congressional leaders from the Republican Party and say, okay, give me a declaration of war. Give me a declaration against the Mexican drug cartels, and we're going to name Trender Aragua, MS-13, other gangs as their auxiliaries, as their proxies, and we are going to hammer them to oblivion. And then put the Democrats on the record. Are you for or against Trender Aragua? Are you for or against MS-13? Are you for or against the drug cartels? And I'm telling you, Sharon, okay, I'm telling you, take it to the bank. As sure as the sky is blue, they're so freaking crazy. They're such a bunch of rabid fanatics with their Trump derangement syndrome. They're going to vote against it. Let them. He'll get the votes in the House. He'll get the votes in the Senate. He'll sign it into law. He'll mobilize the American people. And then we give him the mother of all deportations. And frankly, we go into Mexico with special forces and we wipe out the drug cartels once and for all. I'm talking no more fentanyl, no more drugs pouring in, no more sex trafficking. Slavery is over. The era of modern slavery is over. The trafficking of kids, of women, sex trafficking, it's over. We are going to break the back of the cartels once and for all. And if Trump's people are listening, Donald, you do this on top of everything else, greatest president in American history. This is it. I mean, you want a legacy? This is your legacy. And it's like The Godfather, if you saw the first one. You wipe out all your enemies in the end. You know, the way the Al Pacino character, Michael Corleone, at the end, he just wiped them all out. This wipes them all out. the activist judges. This wipes out the media. This wipes out the Democrats. This wipes out the rhinos. This wipes out the deep state. It wipes them all out. You want to go to war? Let's go to war. Sharon, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868. Or if you want to do, another Al Pacino movie, this one, Scarface, you come out with a declaration of war, a piece of paper, asking Congress to vote on it. Here's my little friend. Say hello to my little friend. And you wield that like a weapon. And that's how you smash your enemies. In other words, go big, go strong, and let's win this baby once and for all. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Should Trump ask for a declaration of war against the Mexican drug cartels, Tren de Aragua, MS-13, militarize the border, and get full authorization from Congress? I say yes. What say you? Dave in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. How are you?
I'm very good.
Thanks
How
for
are
taking
you,
my
Dave?
call. I'm good. So that guy, I think, the one from also the fellow Croatian, kind of stole it of my thunder when, I was going to say the same thing that, why doesn't Trump just pull out his pocket constitution, tell the American people this is why it's already a law and why these judges, everything they're doing is illegal and wrong and against the Constitution, and then just ignore them completely. And also with Pam Bondi and Gash Patel, I'm getting so tired of them that I would give them, you have until Monday to show me some progress or you're gone. Because how long are we going to wait for them to do anything? And again, with these judges, and if they keep on doing it, I believe they should be charged because, they're traitors. All they are is traitors to America. And one other point, Jeff, is you were talking about the Civil War and, whatever. At least there was kind of a boundary there. I know there were sympathizers on each side. If it happens now, it's going to be neighbor on neighbor on neighbor, and that's all it's going to be because it's going to be, half your town, half my town lives, you know what I mean? And it'll be even worse. That's really all I got, Jeff. I just think that he needs to crack the whip now, hammer down, and screw him. You know what I mean? Ignore the judges and get rid of the people that need to be get rid of and put people in there that'll actually do the job.
Yeah, he's got to crack heads. I'm so with you, Dave. And look, this is why I keep saying this. If we act now and decisively, we will rout the opposition. We will smash them, crush them, and save the country. And think about now, what are liberals, what are you now, you fought for slavery. That was the first civil war you brought upon us. What are you going to fight for now? You want to go to war for Tren de Aragua? Like, really? You want to go to war for MS-13? You want to go to war over gangsters, murderers, rapists, and child traffickers? Like, you're willing to fight fellow Americans for that? That's your holy cause now? For criminal illegal aliens? We've got them. When you have the high ground, seize it and then go after your political opponents. And look, that's why I'm urging Trump. It's got to be all hands on deck now. I'm with you, Dave. Don't wait, because time is time, our ally is we have the truth. Our ally now is the enemy is exposed and the enemy is now ripe for the taking. What they want now is time. Drag it out, drag it out, drag it out. Tie Trump's hands, put him in a straitjacket, win the midterms, reclaim the House, impeach him. So what they want to do is they want this to keep going on and on. They want to string this out. If we move quick, fast, decisively, we've got him. We've got him. Dave, thank you very much for that call. How much time left, Mike? All right, let me see if I can squeeze in Natalie in Lunenburg. Thanks for holding, Natalie, and welcome.
For many years with Mexican labor on a farm. Some were legal, some weren't, but they were really good guys, hardest workers you ever want to see. And they schooled me on just how corrupt Mexico is. And not just Mexico, but Central, South America. The cartels, the drug gangs, they have a motto. It's plato o plomo. And in Spanish, that means silver or lead. And they'll approach officials, politicians, prosecutors, police. You want to take the bribe? All goes good. If you don't, you get two in the hat. And courageous prosecutors and whatnot in Mexico get killed all the time trying to stand up to these guys. We're importing the third world into this country wholesale. You import the third world, you also import third world corruption. I think they're sending their insidious tentacles out, and they're doing the plato o plomo in this country. They're approaching these judges, silver or lead. You decide.
Natalie, how dirty do you think the judiciary has now become? Okay, let's go right back to Natalie in Lunenburg. Natalie, I'm just curious, with these recent series of rulings by these rogue, really out-of-control judges, he can't, Border Patrol now can't even arrest illegals without a warrant. Trump can't even deport Tren de Aragua. He can't deport MS-13. Now he's even got to release Tren de Aragua. He can't even invoke the Alien Enemies Act. So it's clear that these judges are going out of their way to make sure that none of these criminal, illegal gangbangers are sent back. They want them to stay in the United States. And as you know better than anybody, these gangs operate as an extension of the cartels, which begs the question, do you think the way these cartels bribe officials, say in Mexico or in Venezuela or in other countries, are they now bribing judges here? And is it time for us to investigate the finances of these judges to see are they on the take as well? Do you think they are on the take, Natalie? I'm just curious.
I don't know, but as I said before the break, if you import the third world by the millions without vetting people, you're also importing third world corruption. And this is how they've rolled for decades in Latin America. The people of those countries are decent, hardworking, basically very conservative people. But they've schooled me personally on just how naive I was to think that there was any shred of integrity in their governments. They have zero. And, I mean, my friends, I'll have to just tell you, the legal ones would go home after the growing season. That was part of the way it works. And one year, the whole family got wiped out, gun violence, down in their village. They were terrified before this went down. But every year when they had to go home, these were four strapping, hardworking, physical laborers, men, macho men. They were terrified to go back home because they understood that they were waiting. The criminals were waiting for them. They knew they were coming back from the States, and that they had money for their families for Christmas. Four guys together, strong men, were afraid, and they had to have strategies to evade criminals when they went home. That's how bad it is. When the family got wiped out, we tried to send money down there to support their families so they could bury them, buy coffins, stuff like that. They're like, no, you can't send money there. Everybody's corrupted. We wanted to send money to school so the orphan children would get an education. No, the headmasters will steal the money. It's like everything is corrupt. So if we're importing that without vetting it, I mean, do you have to be Einstein to put two and two together? I can't say if this is what's going on with the judiciary or if they're just fanatical activists or if the ACLU, which is bringing all of these, has been infiltrated. But you got to think that since Biden started allowing tens of millions of people to just come in and they were all being trafficked by the cartels and they're paying $10,000 a head, the cartels are making billions of dollars. If they can, on a shoestring budget of millions in the good old days in Mexico, impact and corrupt the entire system, don't you think they do it here? They're not stupid.
Natalie, do you think it's time for Trump to declare war on the cartels? I mean, not just from the executive, from the Oval Office, from the executive branch. I mean, go to Congress, get a full declaration of war.
Us, by flooding our country with criminals, the citizenry has spoken through elections that we don't want this. And they're just denying the election. They're spitting in the face of the citizens. The citizens are doing it the peaceful way, the legal way that we're supposed to do it. And it's all for naught because the people in the elite realms of power have no respect for the citizenry. And we're going to take whatever they give us and we damn well better like it, is their attitude. I'm thinking, obviously, I'm not a war person. I want to exhaust everything possible. But the cartels, I mean, how many 100,000 people a year die from fentanyl? I mean, that's outrageously obscene. And it just goes under the radar. How is that?
Natalie,
every year.
Natalie, outstanding call, as always. Thank you very much, Natalie, and have yourself a wonderful weekend. Look, my position is the cartels have declared war on us. They've already declared war on us. So if they've declared war on us, let's declare war on them. And I'm not talking about a land invasion of Mexico. Please, don't get me wrong. But no, tell the Mexican government we are now at war with the drug cartels. Now, you can take care of it, or we will. And we'll use special operations, surgical strikes. We're going to target them financially, economically, and yes, militarily. We're not going to come in and occupy villages and provinces, and no. But we are going to go after these cartels and their leaders. We're going to hunt them down. We're going to find them. We're going to kill them, and we're going to destroy them. And we're going to destroy their entire financial system. And in particular, anyone who's aiding and abetting them here in the United States. And then Trump will have all of the tools and means available to him, and he can deport them all. And no judge can stand in his way. 617, just my opinion, take it for what it's worth. 617-266-6868. Dennis in Leominster. Thanks for holding, Dennis, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Dennis?
Good. I just, in theory, it sounds like a great idea, but do you have any confidence in the Senate? I mean, you know that Murkowski, McConnell, and Collins are automatically going to vote against it. So all they need is one more rhino. So Cornyn or Tillis, pick your poison.
I don't know. Cornyn would get wiped out if he. I mean, think about it. You think the people of Texas don't want to wipe out the cartels? I know what you're saying, Dennis. You're being very prudent. I understand. But this is an issue that I think Trump will carry so much of the country with him, especially now when we've seen these judges blocking him, that I think it's almost going to be political suicide for any Republican to oppose him on this. Now, if Susan Collins wants to go down in flames, if Murkowski wants to get absolutely annihilated in Alaska, go ahead. Alaska has a massive fentanyl problem. And the cartels, of course, China makes it, but the cartels are the source of it in terms of transporting it into our country. She's going to vote against the declaration of war? Okay. She wants to cut her own throat. What I'm saying, Dennis, is the gloves now have to come off. This bickering, arguing back and forth, it's wasting precious time. And the country is getting more and more sick and tired. And so a declaration of war, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, we're going to go right back to the phone calls. But first, before we do, joining us now, as she always does at this time, the CEO, co-founder, president of Kelly Financial Services. And yes, that is her wonderful name, Kelly. Kelly, how are you?
Good morning, Jeff. I am good. If you are a business owner thinking about retirement, here is something important. Preserving your wealth is not just about growing it, it's about protecting it. And that takes more than guesswork. It takes trusted guidance. And that is where Kelly Financial comes in. We specialize in helping businesses and business owners like you protect what you have built. Our advisors help with critical strategies, minimizing taxes, managing risk, planning for succession, and creating a solid retirement income plan. We want your business to work just as hard for you in retirement as you did building it. You can request our free guide, 6 Ways to a Happy Retirement, with tips to help you retire with more confidence and peace of mind. To get the guide or schedule a complimentary consultation, call us or email Kelly at kellyfinancial.org. Jeff, I will continue this conversation with our Kelly advisors tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. on Safe Money Strategies Radio. Do tune in or go to our website for the radio rewind. Jeff, have a wonderful weekend. My best to Grace and the kiddos.
Thank you so much, Kelly. All the best to you and everyone at Kelly Financial. Okay, for a free consultation, call 888-800-1881, 888-800-1881, or if you prefer, you can actually email Kelly herself, Kelly at kellyfinancial.org. That's Kelly at kellyfinancial.org. 617-266-6868. This is from 781. By the way, you can text us 70470, 70470. This is from 781. Jeff, if I were Trump, this would be my instructions to Pam Bondi. Do what Merrick Garland would do. In other words, apply the Merrick Garland standard. So, with all of these rogue activist judges obstructing Trump and preventing him now from deporting anyone, never mind, Trender Aragua, MS-13, nobody now can be deported. What would Merrick Garland do? Well, we know what Merrick Garland would do. He would go after these judges hammer and tong. I mean, he would go after them hard. There would be investigations. There would be all kinds of attacks in the media, threats of being arrested. I mean, Garland would drop the hammer. So, by the way, within the first 3 months of Biden's administration, Garland and the prosecutors at the DOJ put 1,500 Trump supporters in prison. 1,500. Most of them no due process. No due process. 1,500 Trump supporters in prison. Okay? Do you know how many Biden's people have been put in jail so far? 0. Okay, forget prison. Do you know how many of Biden's people have been prosecuted, just indicted, charged with anything? 0. So, do what Merrick Garland would do. 617-266-6868. Marilyn in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Marilyn, and welcome.
Thank you. What I'd like to know is the easiest way to find out the jurisdiction of Judge Rodriguez, because anyone in his jurisdiction can call up the police and have him arrested. That's what we all should be doing. That's what you recommended last week.
Oh, I agree. I mean, he's in South Texas. His jurisdiction is South Texas, and South Texas is crawling with Trender Aragua. That's why this is such a stunning decision. I mean, it's an incredible decision. No other judge, this is what's incredible. No other, even the most rabid anti-Trump judge, okay, Boasberg, even Boasberg never said he doesn't have the right, Trump doesn't have the right to invoke the Alien Enemies Act. Everyone's like, well, come on, he's president of the United States, of course. If he wants to invoke it, he can invoke it, of course. That's clearly within his power. Executive branch power, commander-in-chief power, authority to invoke the Alien Enemies Act. It's been done countless times over the last couple hundred years. This guy comes out of nowhere and says, no, he doesn't have the right to do that. Well, why doesn't he have the right to do it? Because I don't think we're having an invasion. What? No, all these 20 million illegals and all these gangs and terrorists that have come in, I don't think it's an invasion. So if I don't think it's an invasion, Trump shouldn't think it's an invasion. So I'm telling Trump, no, you don't have the right to invoke the Alien Enemies Act. And because of that, you are now not allowed, you are being blocked to deport a single member of not just Tren de Aragua, of MS-13, or any foreign criminal gang or terrorist. I mean, this is unbelievable. Clinton deported millions. And these were non-judicial deportations. No court hearing, no adjudication, no so-called due process. They were gone. George W. Bush, 10 million. Not one judge lifted a finger. Most of them non-judicial. You're here illegally, they capture you, you're gone. That's it. There's no appeal, there's no lawyer, there's no trial, there's no Obama. Millions of illegals, millions. And to be fair, some of them were gangbangers. Some of them were terrorists. No, there's no trial. There's no reading the Miranda rights and getting these people into court, and they get a lawyer and they get to appeal. And what are you talking about? Gone. Every single one of them gone. You're here illegally. You're automatically deported. Case closed. And again, to be fair, Trump did this in his first term. And remember, then it was all Russia, and other things. Not one judge. These same judges. They never said they had a problem then. But now, because Biden let in so many, and they can't, there's no Russia collusion. That doesn't work. What can we get him on? So they don't know what to get him on. So now they're like, well, okay, we're just going to prevent him from executing his agenda. But the people voted for it. We don't care. But every other president's done this. Well, we don't care. But the Constitution allows him to do it. Well, we don't care. Well, the executive branch, he's got clear power. We don't care. Do you understand? We don't care. We're gonna block him. We're gonna obstruct him. We're gonna sabotage him, and that's what we're gonna do. So I'm with you. I think it's time for people to go to this guy, this guy Rodriguez, and say, I'm sorry. Andy in Milford. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff, and thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
Yes, Jeff, the previous callers have just been firing on all cylinders, and I think has created the perfect backdrop for the point I am going to make. And I do agree that President Trump does need to declare war on the cartels and Tren de Aragua and all the rest of it. But first, President Trump needs to declare war on this out-of-control judiciary. We have a national emergency for this situation right now, and what President Trump needs to do is he needs to have a formal Oval Office address. Part of that backdrop, he needs to have a whiteboard in back of him. And written on that whiteboard needs to be written 312 electoral votes. Popular vote mandate, 78 million Americans. And he needs to explain to the American people what has gone on with these lower level federal district courts and circuit courts. And he needs to explain, and he just needs to use a few of the rulings that have been discussed here today to frame how they've clearly encroached on the legitimate Article 2 powers of the presidency, and he needs to explain that he is simply going to ignore the courts, as in all of them, concerning any encroachment on any legitimate Article 2 powers of the presidency. And he needs to use that opportunity to give a mini history lesson about how Andrew Jackson ignored the courts in the 1830s. President Lincoln ignored the courts in the 1860s when the courts tried to nullify abolition. And even recently, Joe Biden ignored the courts on student loans, to make it clear that he's not the only president to do this. And he needs to just say very clearly that anything these illegitimate rulings say I can't do, I'm going to do anyway. And I think we need to talk about the dirty little secret here, Jeff, and it's this. How many badges does the judiciary control on their own? How many guns do they control on their own? The answer is the judiciary simply does not control enough kinetic force to enforce their rulings on their own. Legitimacy is the only thing they have to enforce their rulings. President Trump would be well within his lanes to ignore the courts, but he has to address it in a formal Oval Office address. And finally, use that occasion to say that my political enemies have threatened they're going to start a civil war, and he needs to make clear, I will invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807 before they even have a chance to do that. You elected me as your president. I am going to enforce the will of the American people, and what this will do, Jeff, is this is going to create pressure. It'll create pressure on Congress to do their job. It'll create pressure on Chief Justice John Roberts to do his job. And finally, Jeff, some of the very important rulings out of the Supreme Court that have gone in our favor, if you notice, on some of those rulings, Judge Thomas has had enough influence on the court to eke out a 5-4 majority on some of those important decisions in spite of Roberts, and perhaps that can happen with this.
Andy, I got to say, very powerful. Very powerful. I agree with you, not 100, but 1,000%. And just to add, because I can only add to what you said, because I agree with you 1,000, I said completely. I think it would mobilize the country as well. It would put pressure on the Supreme Court. I agree. Pressure on Congress. I agree. Real pressure on these judges, these rogue judges. I agree. But I think it would really mobilize the country. And I think he's got to say, look, they're trying to destroy my presidency. And we're barely 100 days in. That's what they're trying to do. My enemies are trying to do this. And I'm not going to let them do it. And Andy, what I find incredible, okay, just stand back and objectively. Biden allowed 20 million illegals, unvetted, to pour into our country. That's an invasion. That's a border invasion. What these judges and what the Dems and the media are now saying is, we don't have the right to repel this invasion. So they can all come in with no process whatsoever. No process. They just literally poured in. They just came in. That's it. But now they have due process once they've come in illegally? On what planet? So the invaders can march in, but the president, with the full support and backing of an election and the will of the people, I can't deport him and kick him out? In other words, what they're telling us is we don't have a country. We don't have borders. We don't have sovereignty. We don't have the right to defend ourselves. That's, Andy, am I wrong? Is this, when everything is said and done, when all the ink that has been spilled and the words that have been said and the smoke is cleared. Isn't this, in the end, what these judges and Democrats are saying? The illegals can pour in. We just can't kick them out. Am I wrong?
You're 1,000% correct, Jeff. But the reality is we do still have a country. It's just up to us to stand up. And it's going to be up to President Trump to stand up as a president. And he can do it within his legitimate Article 2 authority. He just has to do it.
Outstanding call. I know the White House is listening, or at least Trump's people are listening. Andy just gave you the solution to all your problems. Address the country, lay it out honestly, forcefully, patriotically, the way Andy just laid out, and the country will be with you all the way. I need another hour. Seriously, I need another hour. To the callers, outstanding job. Have a great weekend. I gotta go. Bye-bye.